On today's podcast, we have Shona McCallin. Shona is a former English international field hockey player. She played as a midfielder for England and Great Britain. She's also the co-founder of the 10% Club, a wellness supplement company. Shona won an Olympic gold medal in the 2016 Summer Games, and she's a key part of the 292 performance team that provides one-to-one support for some of the world's most elite athletes. In her early 20s, Shona ventured to Tilburg in the Netherlands to pursue her hockey career. She spent almost 4 years in Holland, gaining a university degree in international business and also becoming fluent in Dutch. Upon her return, she was selected for the centralised Great Britain training programme at Bisham Abbey. She was then selected for the Rio 2016 Olympic squad and helped them to win that incredible gold medal. Shona's also promised to compete with me in a Hyrox mixed pairs next season, which might possibly end me. In this episode, we're going to discuss the practical steps you can take to build a winning culture. We're going to discuss overcoming adversity with specific reference to injury, and we're also going to discuss the mindset required to transition from aspirational contender to Olympic gold medalist. I hope you enjoy. Shona McCallin, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, James. Thanks so much for having me.
I've been buzzing to speak to you, Shona. I wanted to start off, as always, with, can you just sort of orientate us in terms of where it all began for you?
Yeah, so I started playing hockey when I was about 6 years old. Started playing because as a child, I had too much energy for my parents to deal with. And they decided to, I think, send me to every sports club going, hockey being one of them. Hockey ran in the family a little bit. My mum played, my auntie still plays, my gran used to play, my older sister was playing. So kind of followed in those footsteps, went down to my local club in Newark in Nottinghamshire, and then stayed there for probably the best part of 6 or 7 years until I moved to a slightly bigger and better club to play with, I guess, better people. But that's where it started, really young.
Oh, wicked.
Loads of people ask me, oh, do you need to get into your sport young to succeed? And you absolutely don't. There's people that I know who have achieved the same as me, if not more than me, and got into the sport much later. It's just about sticking with it when the pressure really ramps up, probably between the ages of about 14 to 18 as a teenager, where you're getting pulled here, there and everywhere, and just making sure you make the right choices to be able to succeed at your sport.
Absolutely. Because you're an avid footballer too, right?
I was, yeah. Football was my first love.
Okay.
I absolutely loved it. I would always be kicking a ball. I played at primary school and I was the only girl that played. I played with the boys at the playground. All my mates at primary school were boys in like the local area. You know, obviously you have your 7-a-side matches against local schools, and we were always the school that was known as the school with the girl, because I was the only girl in the whole kind of county that played.
And was that an issue? How was that for you? Like, were you even
Yeah.
conscious of that? Did it ever cross your mind that that was a bit odd at the time, or?
No, for me, no. For me, I was just playing football. I loved it with my mates, and it didn't matter
Yeah.
to me that they were boys, that they, wore trousers and had different things that they liked, because the football would just brought us together.
Yeah.
And I think, having spoken to my mum and my auntie and actually one of my teachers since, I still keep in contact with her. And yes, I was a girl, but I put my weight around, right? So I would shoulder barge these
I've
boys
heard the
and
rumors.
push these boys off the ball. And I think I got a lot of credibility from that, because I was actually quite good as well. And it was novel, a girl playing football well. That was, 20 plus years ago.
Of course.
So I
Yeah.
just got stuck. I never ever felt anything different at all. I never felt out of place. The coaches that I had, the teachers, the boys in the team, they were all so great and just saw me as one of them, and I saw myself as one of them too, which was
That's
looking back
amazing to
quite
hear.
unique. And actually
Yeah. It's the way it should work, I guess. And, in terms of, I guess, because there's, in sports science, people talk a lot about how actually you want to start broad and then narrow as you get older. Did you feel like, participating and channeling your energy into multiple sports did, looking back, did you think that gave you a bit of an edge?
Yeah, 100%. Whenever I go into schools, clubs, I always mention my multi-sport background.
Yeah.
So I, mentioned I was as a keen footballer, and that obviously has transferable skills to hockey. They're both 7-a-side, 11-a-side. It's both a tactical game. It's a physical game. The aim of the game is to score more goals than the opposition. Of course, there's crossover, but I also at school did netball. There's the footwork side of things, the agility side of it, the power side. I did cross country. There's obviously the endurance from that. I did for a bit swimming, which I hated because I found it so boring. But the transferable skills in terms of fitness, different type of lung capacity, non-weight bearing,
Yeah.
the mindset to be able to just swim up and down that lane without talking to anybody
Tell
and
me
just
about it.
crack on. Gymnastics as well, tennis. Like I did so many sports. One, because I was that sporty kid, right? Two, it got me socializing, got me out of the house, it gave me confidence. And three, 100% it absolutely helped my hockey ability. I remember having some good conversations with some of the girls in the Team GB Olympic hockey team, and I think about 85% of us had like a multi-sport background where probably up until the age of about 14 or 15, we were juggling two sports, and then we had to make the decision. Some of them are football, like myself. There was a couple of tennis players as well, and I really don't think it's a coincidence that that's kind of led us to being, or definitely contributed us to being the athletes that we are and that we were. I'm really against specializing too early. I really am. I think it pigeonholes people, and it can just cause an early burnout. You have
Yeah.
too much of something too early, you can easily get sick of it. There's obviously a balance with it. But I'm a big believer of doing as many sports as you can, for mental and also physical reasons growing up.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant advice, and for those of you listening as well, it's the science sort of suggests that it's not just sport too. And some of the guests we've had on the podcast today have been sort of top hedge fund managers, have also said when I've asked them, "What's your advice to people aspiring to be top investors?" And their advice is go broad, don't dive straight into investing early. So I think it's this clear trait where when you get this broad to narrow is certainly the way to go. But so Shona, at what point did you realize I've got something here? Like, I'm really good at this.
Hockey.
Yeah.
Um, I was always good as a youngster. I was always one of the best. So I think when I was like 7, I was playing in the under 11s. When I
Wow.
was, maybe 10, I was playing with the under 13. So I always tended to play up, but I was always at a small club in a smaller pond. Um, I didn't actually get into England under 16s a year early, whereas some of my friends did, and actually only made it the year that I was kind of meant to as such. Um, and I did have I was always one of the better ones, even when I was 14, 15, 16, 17. But I think it was only when I was, I think, 17, I got called up to play with the under 21s. And that's rare for someone still at school to be playing against
Yeah, I
and with
bet.
people, 3, 4 years older than you. And I thought, okay, I'm top two in my age group here. There was only two of us that made it that many years early. And that kind of kick-started something inside of me. Then the following year, I went abroad to play hockey, and my development went through the roof then.
Oh,
Absolutely, just kicked on massively. I think it was a combination of being at that age where I was still like a sponge. I suddenly went from training twice a week to training 5, 6 times a week. I had amazing coaches around me. My experience against playing against really top level athletes over in Holland, I think accumulation of all of that and just really putting some like hard yards in terms of my fitness as well. And I came back after that season, and I was, yeah, head and shoulders above some of the people that I was kind of level with before that. And that's when I thought, I've seen a tangible outcome, right? So I've started to put some real proper work in, but in terms of my nutrition, in terms of my training, in terms of my fitness, in terms of my time committed to hockey, watching video, etc. And now I'm seeing a really great tangible outcome. And so that kind of really kick-started me,
that's the
thinking
feedback loop
actually,
you want, isn't it?
yeah,
Because it just makes it so much easier to buy into that process.
yeah, and I enjoyed that, and I enjoyed seeing that I was improving, and I was enjoying, like, being one of the better players and pushing myself. So probably only when I was probably like 18, 19 did I think, right, I've got a proper shot at this. And then I got, when I was about 21, I got a trial for the seniors, and I got in the training squad. And that knocked me a little bit actually, because straight away I got injured. So I was in this training squad of 31 players, I think, and I was injured for 8, 9 months, and that
Oh
really knocked me
no.
back. And I like, do I actually belong here? Am I good enough? Is this where I want to be? The classic
So those
gone from a
questions
big fish.
did creep
Well,
in
yeah,
in that moment, yeah.
absolutely. And they did even more so when I was sat watching hockey and I was out injured for ages, and suddenly gone from a, yeah, big fish in a small pond to a very small fish in a bigger pond, playing with Olympians and heroes of mine.
Yeah.
Um, and so that, I think that took me a long time to kind of get over that, and only did I really like realize and yeah, really accept that I was good enough to play in the seniors, and I was meant to be here, was probably after winning gold at Rio, the years after that, thinking actually I do belong here now, because before it was I was
That's some
fighting.
evidence.
Yeah, I was fighting to be there. I was not backing myself, and only then, when afterwards, did I think, do you know what? Yeah, I am good enough to be here. I've been part of the team now for 2.5 years. Been part of a successful team winning European gold, Olympic gold. And yeah, I do belong to be here. And that kind of gave me like a bit more swagger. And I just changed my mindset after that and thinking, yeah, here we go. If you want to push on, Shona, like, you've got to start believing it yourself a bit more.
I love that mentality, Shona. And I think it's something that is so important to highlight because so many people want to get that feeling before they decide to commit to the actions, right? They want to feel like, okay, I can really feel and see that I've got it. And then when I feel that and see it, then I'll commit and then I'll go all in. And it just doesn't work like that. You have to commit first to then produce the evidence to give you that conviction and belief in yourself. I think that's a brilliant example of that. Can I just ask you a quick one on your injury? So in that moment when you have that, you've just broken into the first team, you get this injury, as someone who's like a grafter, who's and professional, how did you channel your energy, or what sort of things did you do to sort of try and keep sane through that? Because that's it's not a few weeks, is it? That's a significant chunk of time for someone like yourself.
Yeah, it was really tough. And I, to be honest, during that rehab, I didn't know what to do. It was my first proper like 8, 9 month rehab. I was, moved house, I'd moved countries, I was on my own, and all these things. I didn't know what to do, and it was a huge learning curve for me. What I really learnt during that time was about how to manage myself mentally, how
Okay.
to really appreciate. I still call it this today is the little wins in life, the little wins in the day. I had probably a bit of a turning point, probably about 4 months into the rehab, where I went into the intensive rehab unit at Bisham, which is set up specifically for like intensive rehab. So you're there for a week, and there's 3 athletes max, and you've got many support staff around you. And I had some really good chats with the psychologist there, just in terms of my mindset, how to look after myself, how you're bigger than your sport. You're not only your sport, like, you're shown as a person, and just to keep being able to have like joy away from your sport, because you're not able to do that at the moment, and be able to look after yourself mentally through that. And that really, yeah, just switched my mindset a little bit, um because at that point, like, playing felt so far away. I knew I was still like 3, 4 months away from playing. So setting the smaller goals, whether those be really small day-to-day ones, like, Shona, just make sure you prepare breakfast, lunch, dinner, you eat well throughout the day, you go out and go meet someone for coffee tomorrow afternoon. Really small things like that, but just set intentional goals to be able to achieve them. And then that sense of achievement of doing something, like we were talking about before, that outcome that you're seeing, that progress that you're seeing,
Yeah.
that then just helps keep me a
And
little bit more
owning the
motivated.
situation from a psychological perspective. It's that I'm not the victim here. I'm in charge. I'm going to set these things no matter how small they are, and I'll do them because I've got agency
Yeah.
over my. Yeah, it's brilliant. It's such a good example. And then, so in terms of, I guess you break into the national team. I mean, how does that feel when you go from this aspiring, high potential, prospect to now you're playing for your country at, top international level? Could you talk us through that process? Because
Yeah. Yeah, I remember, so I made my GB debut and my England debut, but two different points. And weirdly, my GB one was before my senior England one, because that was just how it worked for hockey. We were very much in a GB training phase, so that's why I made it my GB one first. But it didn't mean as much to me as the England one. I felt like I was just given it because they were trying new players out, and I was one of the new players, and there was quite a few of us that got our debut on that day. Um, and I wish I didn't feel like that, because it's a really special thing to make your GB debut. Whereas my England one, which was like a year later, which was after my 8-9 months stint out, I felt like I had to really graft for that. Like I did, the 8-9 months of rehab. I had to come back. I had to prove myself. I had no caps. I was for England, and there was a tournament coming up, and I got selected for this tournament, and made my debut for England at a tournament. And that I felt like really, really proud of and really privileged for. Um, being being part of the national team is tough. It's really tough. Like the day to day of it is really tough. And I think only now I've retired do I realize how tough it was, and actually reflecting on, the journey that all athletes go through. Like there's constant dips, whether they be dips of form, dips of confidence, dips of enjoyments. But those dips make you like really appreciate the high points as well. The laughs with the girls, the stupid stuff that happens at training, the pulling together after a really hard session, like the wins, the wins together, the tournaments together. So it was a huge adjustment when I first joined in, and to be honest, it was a constant adjustment throughout my whole 10 years. You were constantly adjusting to what was going on, the ups, the downs, the lows, the highs, and everything else that was going on. But I really do look back with real pride of my career, and a really, yeah, fortunate to have had the career that I've had, for sure, for many, many reasons.
and you sort of came into the team, I guess, as it was on this ascent, right, up to the absolute pinnacle. And like, as someone on that journey with that group, did you feel the standards go up gradually, or were the standards there, but things just started to click more and more until suddenly, whack, you're this huge sporting overnight success?
Yeah, so it was. I probably didn't realize at the time when I was in it, and when I say in it, probably from 2014, the back end of 2014 was when I started to play and made my debut to let's say 2016, the gold medal. I don't think I realized how good we were as a group, and also as a coaching staff as well, and how well we worked together, because that's all I'd ever known. The team
Right.
had a really rough time in 2014 and leading up to 2014, and I wasn't involved in that. I was out injured, so maybe that was a blessing in disguise. So all I knew was what I was seeing. And having been involved with many teams since, like that team was such a well-oiled machine, both in terms of the the teammates, but also the staff as well.
Mhm.
Um, and I think we were just in this like flow state, slowly building towards, well, what was an amazing time at Rio. Um, what we were in that kind of year and a half leading up to it, we were very process driven, very process driven. So, okay, what do we want, and how does this look like? Okay, how are we evaluating that? How we are reviewing this, and it was everything, right? It was everything from training to pre-training routines, to our mentality, to our mindset, to how coaches use language, how players use language. And it was all about the process. Make sure we're ticking every single box off in this process, make sure everybody is involved, make sure everybody is buying in. And if not, then how can we connect with people in different ways? And yeah, just slowly, just things started to happen. At the time I didn't realize, but someone told me like post Rio that the GB team were on like a 25 game unbeaten run. Like
Wow.
it was never spoken about because it's not part of the process. The process is the day-to-day stuff, like
Yeah.
nailing the culture, like, and these things take time. But yeah, so I think I realized that we were part of something special when we won the Europeans with England in 2015, the year before. They hadn't done that for a long, long time.
Mhm.
They were always the bronze medalists, sometimes the silver medalists. And so to finally get that gold and be part of the team that got that gold on home soil, I thought, okay, like this is pretty cool. And we just kind of carried on, like slowly just ramping things up, ramping things up, ramping things up. And um, the pressure was absolutely immense leading into selection for Rio, and everybody felt it.
Could you talk
Um,
us through
and so,
very briefly that selection process? Like, how does selection work? Because you've got this pool of super talented individuals all vying for this, ultimately limited squad space, let alone, starting
yeah,
again. Like, what is the process, and how does that feel as an athlete going through that process?
yeah, okay. So like the process itself, you get an email. You get an email on a set day at a set time, and it's dear blah 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 blah. These are the 16 players that have been selected for Rio, and it's in alphabetical surname order, like 1 to 16. These are the reserves. Congratulations. Da, da, da. So that's what's decided, and that's what we did. Now, leading up to that, we had meetings about selection process, when we wanted it, how we wanted it. Is it phone call? Is it email? Da, 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 da.
So all
But
the
we
players
wanted
had
players
input
to be,
into that.
yeah, because
Brilliant.
we wanted players to be in their own space, comfortable. Have It's obviously a really emotional thing to
Of
deal with,
course.
so is in the right place. So that time allowed everybody to be where they wanted to. It wasn't a training day. We were away. We could be at home. We could do this. So players had input into that. And then leading up to it, well, I guess it's constant selection at training, right? So we trained full time. We were Monday to Friday at Bisham Abbey, centralised. So every training session is videoed, is analysed, is coached, is reviewed, and so every day when you're training, you're pushing yourself to be better, pushing the team to be better, and that's ultimately leading towards selection. Um,
Do you think everyone in that process is clear of what's expected and what the criteria is for being selected? Or is there an element of ambiguity to it?
yeah, so in terms of like clear messaging, we have a selection policy, and that's circulated. In terms of a clear selection criteria, yeah, we don't have that because it's a team sport.
Mhm.
Uh, it's not like, for example, athletics where you
Yeah,
jump over 7 meters and you're in the team, or you run faster than 11 seconds and you've met that marker, so you're in the team.
yeah,
In terms of a team sport, there is an element of subjectivity to it.
of course.
Um, so how to make that clearer for players is that every player will have like their individual performance plan, their individual development plan, and that's created by yourself with the coaches. So you have your certain areas where you need to work on and you need to develop, and there's certain areas where you're really good at, and this is your strengths that you really need to carry on doing this. And then depending on the coach, so these meetings would happen maybe 3 4 times a year, and you can always ask for more feedback and more meetings, but depending on what the coaches felt was right, you were sometimes given a status. So showing her like, these are your points, let's discuss them. You're actually number 16 to 20 at the moment. 16 goes
Okay.
to the Olympics, 17 18 19 are reserves. So it could be Shona, you if selection was today, you'd be in our 16, but that's not enough, we want you to carry on pushing forward. Or Shona, at the moment you're outside of our thinking, you're 24 to 30, it's going to be a challenge for you to push yourself into selection. So there are ways to make it, I guess, as clear and as directional and as yeah, objective as possible in a very
Yeah, yeah.
subjective
That's
field.
brilliant.
So that was kind of what happened, like, leading into selection. We would have these meetings probably like twice before in that year leading up to it, and then you have your match play and you have your trainings, and that's your time to showcase, right, and to prove that you should be on the plane with that team.
Of course. That's amazing insight. And then In terms of some of the things you talked about there with culture, I just love it. And I guess the question I've got is, did everyone buy into it? It sounds like you had a wonderful group, full stop, and it's easy to sort of look back in hindsight and say that. But it sounds like they certainly did. But was that just as simple as having a great group of people, or was there some challenges?
Yeah, definitely. So the culture probably wasn't where it needed to be in 2014 when the team had a bit of a tricky time. And what happened after that was we got a new coach in and we got a new psychologist in, Dr. Andrea first, who really lays the foundations for what she felt we needed. And we started right from the bottom, a blank piece of paper in terms of the culture of the team, and we created what was our vision, our values, and our behaviors. So our vision was externally said to people what we wanted to be. So we wanted to be the difference. We wanted to create history, and we wanted to inspire the future. And to
Oh, I
briefly
love that.
explain what they mean. And they mean to different things to other people. So be the difference was, for me, it was the 1%ers. Do the things which are going to make the difference. Create history. Yeah, that was about writing our own story. It could be winning an Olympic gold medal. It could be winning the first GB team to win 2 consecutive gold medals or 2 consecutive medals at the Olympics. Create your history as a team, and then inspire the future was more off-pitch stuff. So be role models, like go and do school visits, go out and see hockey in the community. Like, it's not just about what you're doing now, it's about creating like a legacy for the sport. So that was our vision. And I have to say, all of these sort of vision, values, and behaviors were all created and agreed upon by the playing group. It was our thing, what we wanted to create and what we wanted to live by. So we needed to buy into that. So we needed to create it ourselves and believe in it. There's no point giving us, right, girls, you're this, and this, because it might not land with people. If you want real buy-in, you've got to have people's input and people's, helping to
Have it
create it,
flow
because then
from
it
them, right?
means, yeah, it's got to come
Yeah.
from us. This is our thing. And then we had our values, and then we also had our behaviors, which was kind of what putting it simply, was kind of like a behavioral checklist of what we do, right? So on match day, we wear the same kit, we come to meetings with notebooks, we make eye contact with people, we engage in meetings, we reply to emails on time, we leave shit at the gate. There was a whole range of things, and they're actually in, 2 of my teammates wrote an amazing book about team culture, and they're all in there. And that was kind of the framework of what we based ourselves on. And there was buy-in because we created it. The creation process was long and lengthy, and there was a lot of meetings, and it took a lot of time. But I think that those things
My God,
need
it's
time
worth
to
it though, isn't it? You see people
so
watch
worth it.
this and it just does not work.
So worth it. And at the time I was a bit skeptical. I was like, what is this? Like, never really talked about this kind of stuff before. Like, and again, like, only when I look back and like reflect and realize, like, God, that was some real good shit that we did. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah, we can swear.
Okay, great.
Because
That
one of
was
the things
some real good shit.
because one of the things I've heard you say, Shona, which I love, is that confidence comes from preparation. And it sounds like what we're talking about now is almost the foundational element of that preparation, right? Because it informs how you prepare, right? In terms of your vision, your mission, your values.
Absolutely, yeah. That was one thing. If we fast forward a bit, going into Rio, we had honestly prepared for every single situation possible. That,
Yeah, I heard rumors about how prepared you guys were.
yes, like, so prepared, but that meant that you could just concentrate on what was the job in hand. So in terms of on pitch stuff, every single scenario you could think of, we'd prepared for. If our goalie got injured, if our captain got injured and was injured for the whole tournament, if our coach decided that he just didn't want to coach us anymore and just left, or like literally everything we prepared for, so we knew that every scenario was covered for. And then in terms of like on pitch tactics and stuff, we knew everything. If we're 1-0 down with 6 minutes to go, what we're doing. If we're 2-0 up and we need to draw, what we're doing. If we're 3-1 up and we need to hold on to the lead, and we knew all of that. We'd practiced it, we'd spoken about it, we'd practiced it again, we'd reviewed it. So we were so prepared, and that just gives you confidence, because then all you need to go out and do is the task at hand, which is implement the game plan, like what we do day in, day out: play hockey, run hard, communicate, enjoy, have fun, because we knew it all. It's like when I go into schools and stuff and speak to students about this, it's imagine going into an exam knowing that you'd done some real good revision for the last 8 weeks, and you'd covered everything, you'd covered it again, you felt really confident, and actually the night before the exam you didn't need to revise because I've done it, compared to you go into an exam like having had 3 hours sleep because you literally just started revising a week before, you'd only covered 90% of the topics, you're not sure on some of them, you stressed out your brains. So
Absolutely.
that's the analogy that I use. Like, we were going into every single game at the Olympics like so prepared. The only
That's
thing we didn't
amazing.
prepare for was winning a gold medal and what to do after that. That's what we were unprepared for. And we were all like, what do we do now? And that was something
Yeah.
we just never
You
spoke
worked it
about. And
out.
yeah,
And
we worked it
interesting.
out. We worked it
Yeah.
out.
Because of course, from an evolutionary perspective, when we talk about emotions, right? Emotions are prompts to direct our behavior and actions. And the evolutionary mechanism of fear is that unconscious message that you're about to be presented with a threat that you're not prepared to meet, or the demands about to be imposed on you exceed your current capacity. That's what triggers anxiety and fear. And I think what you're talking about is the absolute foundation and 101, talk about doing the basics properly, of being confident in whatever it is you do. And there's no shortcut to that. And I just think it's such
Yeah.
a brilliant example.
Yeah, we were just honestly so prepared, and that's something that I still do to this day, and have taken that into my stuff outside a hockey pitch.
Yeah,
Going to meetings or going into presentations, like just making sure that I am prepared for the threats that could happen, which could derail what my outcome is, or what my desired outcome is here.
fantastic. And Shona, I guess we're obviously talking about Rio and that gold. And one of the questions I love to ask people is this, to reflect on like a peak experience where all the hard work that, from mum and dad driving you around silly as a kid to all your different sports, to engaging in the sort of the work with values and behaviors that you're initially a bit skeptical about, but you dig out, you trust your coach, you trust the process, you invest the behavior, let alone all of the literal blood, sweat, tears involved. But then it all comes together, and you just access all this ability that you've been building over the years, and you deliver on demand under pressure. Is there a moment that stands out for you as a peak experience in that respect?
At the time I didn't realize it, but Rio,
Yeah.
100%. And the whole tournament, right? Not just the gold medal winning match, the whole tournament, for sure. Since then, what was a real moment for me was actually at the next Olympics I went to, Tokyo, and we were in the bronze medal match against India, and we were looking pretty good, 2-0 up, playing really well. And then we blinked and we were 3-2 down, and it was half time. And I remember sitting in that changing room looking at everybody being like, okay, what's just happened here? This is now where we go to our reserves, which we've been working on behind the scenes in terms of the hockey stuff, scenario planning, the blood, sweat, and tears that we put into getting ourselves fit and ready for matches which were 41 degrees, like it was against
Yeah.
India, and being prepared for that, and that not being an issue. Like, it's mad that that just wasn't an issue now, looking back. But also the stuff behind the scenes in terms of working on, team culture, how we speak to each other in pressure situations, how people like to be spoken to, And that just all came to fruition, like in that second half against India. Like within 3 minutes of that second half starting, I was like, we're on this. This is ours now. When we ground our way back in and ended up winning 4-3. And that second half for me was just like, yes, this is us. This is our
Brilliant.
moment. We were this. We knew what to do. We could have panicked, but we were so prepared. And that was for me, that was very conscious. Whereas I think for Rio, I was just very much in this flow. I was like one of the youngest players. I was just like, "Ooh, Olympics!" They would just do it. Whereas I think I did definitely had different mindset in Tokyo, but that was a huge moment for me personally. That changing room in the bronze medal match.
Sorry to interrupt the podcast, but before we dive deeper into the conversation, I want to express how grateful I am that you're voluntarily choosing to spend your time here with us. I also want to take a moment to ask for your support. I want to bring you the best podcast I can in terms of guests, engaging discussions, and thought-provoking conversations every week. And that's where you come in. By hitting that like button and subscribing to the podcast, you play a vital role. Simply put, when you hit that like button or subscribe, you enable the podcast to reach a much wider audience. And the wider the audience, the easier it is for guests within my network to convince their agents, management teams to free up their diary and come on the show. Thank you in advance for your likes and subscriptions. Now, let's get back to business. Is there a moment for you that stands out as where you have really struggled maybe to grapple with emotion?
Yeah, loads of times, and not afraid to say that. Being an international athlete is just a roller coaster of emotions. It really
Yeah.
is. Unfortunately, I don't actually know, not unfortunately, I have been unlucky with injuries, and I've probably in my 10-year career, I was probably out injured for a accumulation of about 4.5 years. So not all at
Wow.
once, but
Yeah.
so that's nearly half my career that I was out injured. And there was so much learning in there. Some of them were really, crappy times, but there was so much learning, and it made me the player and the person that I am today. I know who I am. I know what my values are, my morals are. I know what things I'm okay with and what things I'm really not okay with, and how to challenge people on that. What was a really, really, really tough time was my first concussion that I had. So I've had two fairly long ones in my career. My first one was in 2018 in February, and I just got back from a niggly knee injury, and I was playing my first match back over in Argentina, and I was playing pretty well considering I'd just come back, and then I just got a whack on the head by an Argentinian shoulder. And yeah, I ended up being out of action hockey wise for about 10 months, I think. So February, and I got back in December. So yeah,
Wow.
10, 11. And for me, that was such a roller coaster because, I was nearly back to playing like three times, and then I had a huge relapse in terms of symptoms, and it was very much like up, down, up, down, up, down. Whereas on other rehabs, you're just slowly building up, up, up. You might have a little blip, but you go up, 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 up. Whereas for this one, it was literally like, ugh, because concussion is such an unknown, it was back then. Well, we're talking now like seven years ago. It's
Mm-hmm.
such an unknown thing. It's such a grey area in terms of dealing with it, handling it. There's so many different facets to it, both from a physical, mental, emotional point of view. So that was really, really hard because I lost myself as a person, my identity. I wasn't able to do social things really. I lost my identity as a player. And it was such a long time that I was out for. So I nearly gave up then. I nearly quit in that time because I was like, I
Okay.
can't do this anymore. I really can't do
Yeah,
this
and I'm not
anymore.
surprised that thought would it's only natural that would cross your mind in those moments. But ultimately you sort of you bounce back from that. Again, what would you say? What's your advice to maybe someone who's perhaps experiencing maybe it's not literally a concussion, but a concussion moment, let's call it, where
Yeah. I think whatever the situation that people find themselves in, and it's a really difficult one, it's trying to look at the bigger picture, trying to get a bit of perspective out of it. And what I do quite a lot still now is when I'm in a situation which I'm finding tricky, both mentally, emotionally, physically. You know, I imagine myself as my best mate looking in on this situation and say, what would she say to me right now? What advice would she give me? And then often I take that because
I love that.
she knows what, and it just allows you to step out of the situation. And then what I've learned, like through various challenging moments, both professionally, personally, is take control of the situation. So what we were speaking about earlier, take control of things which you can achieve in that day or in that week or in that month. And that kind of physical progression that you see, whether it's a physically ticking something off a piece of paper or whether it's physically seeing the results of a 5K that you did because you said you wanted to run a 5K or whatever that may be, but seeing some, for me, seeing some form of like physical progression or output really helps just make sure that I'm still feeling like I'm moving forward and I've taken control of the situation. And I think for me, that's because of the way I am and because I'm so like goal driven and I have been throughout my whole career. But seeing something physical, and this can be anything, right? It can be, like I say, like ticking off something on my calendar,
Yeah.
or it could be doing a physical job that needs doing and I see the outcome. So it could be, you know, I was in a hole a couple months ago and felt like the house was just a bit of a clutter mess. I physically cleaned it all up, went to the dump, moved all my shit out, and the physical outcome is me seeing
Yeah.
like a
I
room
did
which
that.
I'm now, yeah, happy with and proud
Yeah.
of, rather than, you know, feeling something. I'm seeing it,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that I've learned over the last, year or so is, for me, seeing a physical progression really like works with me. Probably because of the
Brilliant.
athlete in me and the I've
Yeah,
learned.
yeah, and you're just giving us a brilliant story and a live example as an elite athlete of something that, we know in science, we know in psychology that exactly what you're talking about, just isolating whatever it is in front of you, break it down to so that it's small enough that you're prepared to stand up and sort of attack it. And it's something you want to attack. So ideally something that is bugging you, like a messy house, and then just getting after it, no matter how small, and it can really spiral up quick, that and you'll find yourself, right, what's the next thing I can attack? Because goal setting is addictive in itself, isn't it? As soon as you do one sort of thing,
Yeah,
like you've talked about earlier on the podcast, you do one thing and then you're like, right, what's the next? And it grows fast.
yeah, it
And
does. It
and one of the things I've really, really wanted to talk to you about was in terms of, because you are an intense, competitive, driven A-type person. The other side of competing and training is rest recovery, not just physically, but emotionally, mentally. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you've got that right over your career? And maybe if you've got it wrong at times.
think I'm still working on it. There was definitely a time in my career where I kind of use the word like addicted. Like I got too addicted to it. So I'd come home training, I'd be watching video, I'd be making sure I was doing this. I'd be too busy. There was no switch off time. So there was a time, when how old I was, maybe like 24, 25, where I had to say, right, let's say I got home from training at 4, I'd have my shower. Okay, show you've got till 5:30 to think about hockey, to do your recovery, to watch video, to make notes, and then from 5:30, that's it. You're switching off, and I had to like be really strict
The
on
solid
myself because otherwise,
boundaries and constraints like that.
yeah. And so that's when I was getting it wrong because actually it was just over consuming and it was too much. I think nowadays, at the end of my career, I was much better at that. Way better. I was way more relaxed with things, and I set myself boundaries. I think since I've retired, I have found it tricky to just stop and not do something. Like I was speaking to one of my old teammates, her husband. He was like, she's the same. She just can't sit down on the sofa. She's always got stuff to do, whether it be going out to mow the lawn or going out to clean the patio or doing this. Like, and I'm the same. Like, I just have to be busy, and I'm working on that because it's not healthy. Sometimes you do just need to decompress and just sit and be okay and like
Yeah.
watch a movie and not be busy thinking about what you're doing tomorrow. Like, and a big thing for me is to be able to do that properly. I really actually enjoy it when I get into it, but it takes me a while to get into it. To do that properly, I have to like really like plan it and physically think about it. So I'm like, right, tonight I am my phone's going upstairs. Um, I'm cooking dinner. My laptop's off. The heating's going to be on. The candles are on, and I'm going to sit down and I'm going to watch this on Netflix for two
Yeah, I love
episodes.
that. So what you're talking about there is removing cues that can trigger that part of you we want to try and switch off for a bit. And also you're talking about planting cues there that trigger maybe some of that relaxation restoration in terms of like the candles, for example.
Yeah, yeah, that's that, and that's because it's not natural for me. I have to be really purposeful with it, and
Yeah.
it's things like make it like in the house to make me want to stay there and want to be there because it is good for me to do that. Is to make sure it smells nice. So I'm, constantly on Amazon buying like those refill things which you plug in because
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
just it makes me feel better, and it's simple things like that. Or it could be that I invite a friend round and I'm like one of my friends knows me really well. She's like, God, you just don't stop, do you? So she's like, right, we are watching this tonight, and we are one of our things that we say is we're going to be like anti-social social. So we're just sitting there. We're not really saying anything, but we're still being sociable with each other and we're
That's a
still switching
brilliant
off from
phrase.
it. And it's totally
Fantastic.
fine and it's
Yeah.
great. I'm still learning that. I think, I've
It's a
always
skill,
been,
isn't it? And the more effort and strategy you put into it, you'll get right. But again, I would advise anyone listening that is maybe your end of the continuum in terms of if you're wired that way, you can't just expect it to happen. You have to put some structured, again, a bit like you were talking about earlier, put a bit of that initial thought into it. Actually, when am I most switched off? What's going on? And, if it smells or it's this and with these people. And then it's like, you have to try and facilitate that in the environment or and create it. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, that's a brilliant example. And do you have any, obviously you're a high performance human being full stop, even though you're not competing at an Olympic gold medal right now. But do you have any weird habits or performance hacks that you're like religious about in terms of morning routines, evening routines, anything like that?
Um, Not overly, to be honest. I was never like a superstitious like routine person.
Yeah.
I think what I still do now, so I still compete. I still play hockey at a high level, and still I'm doing my Hyrox. So I've still got that competitiveness
Yeah, I can't
inside of me
wait
in
to see
terms of
how you get on with that.
yeah. Um, but what I do still do, I think, pretty well is I've still got that like pre-training routine that I used to do a lot before
Okay.
training. So I still walk properly and do my stretching and do my prehab and my activation stuff because I know that my body needs that. And also I know if I don't do it, I won't be able to compete and do my sport and run and go to the gym. And that is something that's really important to me at the moment because it just gives me energy, it keeps me happy, it's social.
And you enjoy the gym, right? Because I know some games athletes like playing football, playing hockey, but enjoy less that strength and conditioning side of it. But you enjoy that aspect.
I I love it because I'm training for a Hyrox, right? And I've got
Yeah.
like a real clear goal in mind. What I do much prefer like training with people. So for
Yeah.
me, I train and play and coach at Reading, and I go to the session and I think, great, I'm having a social. That is number one. And with girls who I really love hanging out with, I really get on with the coach. Great, it's a social. The next thing under that is it's a workout. So I'm going to be running around having fun, like so that's a hit as well. And then the third one under that is like it's competitive. So that scratches the itch that I have about competitiveness. And that's how I see like exercise now, whereas if it's the gym it's a little bit different, especially if you're on your own, like it's not
Mhm.
social. You can be competitive if you've got times and stuff that you have in mind. So that's why I do prefer like going to doing stuff with people, because for me exercise is a physical thing but it's also a social thing. Like I do really enjoy like the community
Absolutely.
aspect of it. Since retiring I've joined like a run club and I literally love that. is so diverse with the amount of people that are there. Like, you get in your social, but you're also getting your physical activity as well. And then after finishing, you're always high as a
Yeah,
kite on endorphins.
they're the best ones.
Yeah, so I do love the gym, but I do love actually more being with people and making
Sure.
exercise social. It hits two birds with one stone, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And like, show you talked about, I guess we've talked about like obviously you had this incredible experience at Rio, then you go into Tokyo and you're this more mature, older player in that environment. And now, of course, you're in a coaching role at Reading. Like, is the coaching something that is that something that, you really see as a big part of your future? Or is it something you're still sort of experimenting with?
I think I'm at that stage where I'm just experimenting. So since I've retired, I've kind of been experimenting with lots of things and just getting stuck in with loads of different things, trying to figure out what I really like, maybe what I don't like, what I could like, what I don't have time for at the moment, but interests me. And coaching is one of them. And the biggest downfall for coaching is it's super antisocial in terms of the hours. And the sport that we play, hockey, is known as a winter sport, so the weather is often terrible.
Yeah.
So that's a bit of a downer, but I have really enjoyed it. I think if you were to break up my role, in terms of the amount of actual coaching I do compared to, player relationship management, tactical chats, video analysis, like feedback, preparing for meetings, I probably coach about 10% of the time. Let's say I did 20 hours a week. I probably
Right.
coach for 2 to 3 hours of that week, if that. Um, so there are a lot of different aspects of coaching that I do enjoy, and there's a lot of new things which I've got, been thrown into this year, which has been great. And those are definitely transferable to work, that I'm doing now and for other businesses. Um, in terms of communication and feedback and having conversations, perhaps difficult conversations with people and looking at a strategy behind things. So I do enjoy it, yes. I had actually a really great experience recently. There was an opportunity that came up for me to go and coach England under 21s out in Spain. So I went with a fairly new coaching group out there, and it was a huge step up for me from being a player 18 months ago to then being on the sideline with the under 21s. It was amazing. I learned so much about how much goes into coaching. It's not just what you see, planning training and doing training. So it was a real eye opener, but it's definitely something that I'm going to carry on exploring and just see where it goes.
Brilliant.
Do I want it to be a full-time career right now? No, but am I closing the door on it? Also no.
Makes a lot of sense. And so on that note, I mean, in the context of your career now, what is most important to you moving forward?
So for me, I'm still fairly fresh from retiring. And what I'm really enjoying and loving at the moment is, one, the choice and freedom that I have.
Yeah.
As a pro athlete, you just don't have that at all. So I'm enjoying making the most of that and using that to my advantage in terms of being exposed to new things, and doing new things. So, for example, I've got the flexibility to work from home now. Before I didn't, right? You're at training, and so now I can work from home and go and stay with family for a few days. Great. Or I can go abroad and go work from abroad.
Yeah.
I also have really enjoying going to like meeting so many new people. Both in like the sports world, and the elite sports world. I'm still doing a bit of work in there, but also not in the sports world as well, and just having
Yeah.
experience, conversations, and learning from all those different people. Because I was very much kind of blinkered and just exposed to the same kind of people in terms of the team, the wider team. So I'm really enjoying actually getting to know and experiencing and learning from new people. And so that's been super enjoyable for me as well. And then the winning formula for me is putting those two together. So meeting new people whilst also getting new opportunities and being flexible and working from different places and yeah. So that's been really really good for me. It's been a huge learning curve as well, like just basic things like managing my own diary and having to put things in rather than be told where I'm doing it and what
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
doing and what time. So that took a bit of time. But overall, like I've been retired now for 6, 7 months, and I'm really enjoying it. There's no regrets from my side, and yeah, I'm really really happy with my decision, and I'm really happy with kind of the experiences that I'm getting in life at the moment, and enjoying not playing hockey as a job full time, and enjoying not feeling so tired as well.
I can imagine. I can imagine. I wanted to sort of finish up with asking you some quick fire questions. Are you ready?
One
Favorite?
word answers.
Well, you can have a couple. Everyone ends up. Yeah, people struggle with that. It seems like favorite movie.
Coach Carter.
Oh, nice. Favorite series.
Oh, mm, Gossip Girl.
Okay. Book.
Mm, Harry Potter, one of the Harry Potter ones, Philosopher's Stone.
Okay. Yeah, great choice. Is there a quote? Have you got a favorite quote or mantra?
Um, Not really. I One thing I do live by is like always be better than yesterday.
Okay.
So
Yeah. Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
better than yesterday.
And have you got a favorite athlete of all time?
Hmm. I don't actually. I When I was playing, I very much looked up to like a couple different ones. So the mindset and the mentality of one of my teammates, Helen Richardson Walsh, coming back from so many injuries and just
Okay.
being still so driven and determined. Um, a big inspiration for me, weirdly, was when I watched the Sydney Olympics for the first time, and Kathy Freeman was on TV in
Oh, yeah.
a hood, running,
Yeah.
winning
Yeah.
a gold medal, hundreds of thousands of people watching, and
I remember that.
like
Yeah.
having the pressure for that, like odd because I was, what was I at the time, like 8 years old, but I still remember it
Wow.
vividly, like where I was. Um, yeah, and then just various other teammates throughout my career. There was a player that I played with in Holland who was just such a like a good professional, and also just such a good person.
Mhm.
So like looked up to her a lot. So yeah, throughout my career I had loads of like different little role models, but not one as such. And actually, do you know what? I think that's a bit of a shame because I don't think I had access to like female role models as much as people do now.
Okay.
Um, um, I think that's probably,
I can imagine the airtime actually. Yeah. If we think back to
yeah,
that, that top female athletes
yeah,
are getting thankfully it has changed, hasn't it? A lot in the last 15, 20 years.
yeah. So yeah, I think for me it was like a little bit of lots of people, but I know people, have way more exposure to female athletes now, and also male athletes as well.
And is there a team, the greatest team of all time?
Um,
Obviously, the England women's 2016 Rio.
Teams would be. As I'm a huge football fan,
Yeah.
and what Leicester City did was honestly incredible.
Yeah. Something else,
Winning the
wasn't it?
Premier League.
Can you see
Uh,
anything like that happening again?
no,
I can't see it. I think that really is
no. I
one
think
in 100 year sort of event.
the Arsenal Invincibles as well, going through that season being undefeated, like
Yeah.
mega. Um, and more recently, like the Lionesses, like
Yeah.
that Euros win was
It's
incredible.
incredible.
Was that
Yeah.
all football related, ironically, aren't they?
Yeah.
um yeah, those three moments really stand out for me.
No, the great shouts. And last one, if you could have a coffee or a drink with any historical figure, is there anyone that jumps out to you?
Oh, um not historical, but I would really, really love to pick Serena Wiegmann's brains.
Yeah.
What she's doing with the Lionesses right now seems like something to be really like excited about. I've also lived in Holland for like for about 4 years, 2 stints, 1 3, 1 year.
Of course.
And so I understand the Dutch mentality a bit more, and just how she is, like, fascinates me.
Oh, give us some insight into that then. When you say Dutch mentality, because I know you speak so fondly of your time over there. Is there anything specific that they bring? Because again, for the size of the country, they pack a punch, don't they? In team sports, whether that's, you know, hockey, football, they really make a dent. And they've got
Um,
iconic methodologies. A lot of the Dutch teams in football, at least, haven't they? With the Ajax
yeah,
4-3-3.
yeah, they do. So the Dutch are very direct,
Okay.
very direct. Um, they don't get sarcasm either. Well, not so much. And that was a big challenge for me when I first joined, because I was like, you're all so rude. They're not rude, they're just direct. What's the point
Right.
in beating around the bush to say it? So I'd be interested to hear her view on the English culture and how she has implemented that. Whether she's just gone full Dutch and, guys, this is who I am, this is what it is, or whether there's some give and take and stuff. They're very honest in performance as well. Like, the amount of times that I got told, like, oh, that wasn't your best game today, was it, Shona? And I'm like 18 years old, like, no, I know, but there's just how it is, you know, what's said, done, you know, move on. Yeah, so that I would be really interested to see how that kind of embedding process has been, in terms of, yeah, because they
It's
do
another
pack a
exciting one,
punch.
isn't it, to watch, that I'm sure we're going to be talking about in the future, in terms of like profound methodology behind what they've produced, rather than just
Yeah.
chucking a bunch of people together and seeing what happens. It seems like there's some serious thinking going into to the work they're doing, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I'd love to sit down with her, because also to discuss, like, obviously the highs of winning the Euros, and then not a blip, but not winning the World Cup, and
Yeah,
then
just missing out there.
more of a dip now, not qualifying for the Olympics. So
Yeah.
how's that cycle, and how's that going? That would be, like, great to kind of pick her brain
It
from a
sums up exactly what you talked about earlier, doesn't it? That roller coaster ride that is, I guess, elite performance in any craft. And I always sort of describe it as this: if you get it right, even if you get everything perfect, it might go bottom left to top right, but the journey's going to be volatile and exponential. It'll be like, bah, then bang, you get those breakthrough moments, but you just got to hang on for them. But then it will go back to volatile again, constant ups and downs,
Yeah, exactly,
no
exactly,
straight
and
lines to
how
the
to deal
top.
with that. Yeah, and how to deal with the pressure now, the expectation, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a privilege, expectation now on them.
Pressure is a privilege, but yeah, it's performance is a cruel mistress. Again, there's just as many downsides to the sort of movie version upsides we see when we look at people celebrating winning gold medals, but they, you know, there's a lot of pain that comes as well, right? In order to get to that position. Shona, in terms of, just one final question for me. So let's say someone listening to this podcast who's, you know, really sort of resonates with your journey, in terms of they're ambitious, they want more out of themselves, and, you know, what would be the one take home piece of advice you would slam down their throat if you could?
It links back to, like, being better than yesterday, and how do you do that? And for me, it's about taking 2 3 minutes every day to, like, reflect on something that's happened that day, either what you've learned, what you could have done better, what went well, um, or it could be, if you are trying to feel better, it could be 3 things that were good that day, depending on kind of your headspace. But just taking time to reflect. We don't reflect as much as we need to. I certainly don't. Everything's going on and on and on and on and on, and just taking time to reflect. Then, like, let's say you do that every day for a month. Okay, then you've got a month's worth of reflections. Okay, what trends are happening here, what's going on, whether it be physical trends, mental trends, emotional trends, routine trends, whatever. That would be a really good solid starting point. Yeah.
Shona, I absolutely love that. I think that's a brilliant piece of advice. And yeah, I implore anyone listening to actually engage in it, because it is that simple. You can scribble that down. You can jot on notes on your phone. You can even just do it in your head on your pillow before you go to bed at night, right? Shona, thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation with us. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, best of luck for your Hyrox. I'm really looking
Yeah,
forward to seeing how you get on.
thank you so much. Yeah,
Right.
I'm scared, but I'm excited for it as well. It'll be great. It'll be
I'm
so
sure you'll be
great.
prepared.
Cheers, James.
Cheers, Shona. Speak soon. Thank you for choosing to spend your time with us today. I love this topic of human performance and excellence, and I've been engaged in it neurotically for the last 20 years. It's a sincere privilege to have the opportunity to share my knowledge, network, and learnings with you. Now, go and put the principles to work. Make sure you let us know what resonates. Reach out with questions, blind spots. We've got you covered. Remember, excellence is just a series of days repeated over and over again. Now go and win your day. In 2021, I published my first book, Accelerating Excellence. If you're finding the conversations and information on this podcast useful, you might want a physical reference point and to gain even deeper awareness of the concepts discussed. The book's actually more of an operation manual containing more detail with a step-by-step guide on how to implement all this stuff so you can get maximum benefit, which was one of my main motivations in writing it. Yes, I want the podcast and the book to be inspiring and entertaining, but it was non-negotiable for me to make sure that the listener or reader is provided with a structure and direction in terms of actually putting this stuff to work. The book's called Accelerating Excellence. It's a #1 international bestseller. And if you're moving from more than just interest towards implementation, I think you'll really enjoy it. Like everything I do, the book is evidence-based, but practice-led, drawing on my experience working with some of the world's most elite, exclusive, high-performing teams and individuals. It's filled with highly actionable strategies you can apply today to become better tomorrow. If this sounds like something from you, see the link in description where you can download 6 chapters of the book for free in either audio or digital format. It's also available to purchase on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and at your local bookstore. I hope you enjoy. By now, we all know the importance of a winning mindset. We're bombarded with elite performers telling us that mindset's what separates the best from the rest. That if we want to be successful, we need to be more confident, resilient, and motivated. And of course, when panic strikes, we need to calm down, relax, or chill out. Great, we get it. But the question is how? We're given this guidance with almost zero practical advice in terms of how to achieve it. Where can we actually go to develop that world-class mindset? What's the back squat for resilience, the bench press for confidence, and the bicep curl for positive thinking? Well, that's why I created the Mindset app. Through the app, you'll gain access to the psychological skills training used by world champion athletes, special forces operators, and some of the world's most successful traders and investors. The reality is these guys pay me a fortune to help them get this right. But the thing is, these skills are equally, if not more important, for the aspiring athlete, executive, or operator. And that's exactly why I created this app. I want these tools and training available to anyone, anywhere, anytime. Mindset is a skill, and like any skill, it can be developed with the right strategy and effort. The tools and techniques are designed in a way that will literally rewire your brain, like learning to ride a bike or drive a car. All the techniques are designed with creating a high-performing, self-regulating you 2.0. Every strategy in the Mindset app is backed by empirical research. There's 10-minute emotional control training exercises that have been shown to increase your ability to overcome detrimental decision-making biases by up to 80%. In another study, just 3 weeks of executing visualization training led to 34% improvements in performance. Another research group found 50% greater improvements in the rate of learning. And just a few weeks of performing visualization led to 22% reductions in anxiety and 21% increases in confidence. These numbers are phenomenal, and I've never met an elite performer in any domain that can afford to be missing out on this type of edge. What I love most is that we've structured everything so that you don't need to carve out an extra hour in your day to get this done. Small bite-sized chunks of 5 to 10 minutes are all it takes. In fact, I'd only encourage you to use the tool on your commute, in the sauna, at the end of your working day, or bolt it onto the end of your gym session. Any dead time you have can now immediately be transformed to deliver you extreme performance gains. My goal is to remove every possible obstacle to your development. And with that in mind, the basic package is completely free. Visit the link in description and sign up for our pre-launch free emotional control, visualization, and performance routine programs.